emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 352.JB0525, certificate number 31042, the Dionne Quintuplets.
Don't you know what duplicates are? Sure, there's 5 kids up in Canada.
I was just thinking that we have actually covered twins before on the Omnibus. Do you remember? Like if future listeners are not aware of the possibility of primates having multiple births, we've already told them that twins are a deal. Remember we did the twins of Benin?
Yes, I do remember. Is there a creature that doesn't sometimes have multiple births?
Yeah, I think humans sometimes don't. That doesn't sometimes, not that sometimes doesn't.
Yes, that's right. That's right, internet pedant.
I don't know. I mean, with mammals, the trend is like more, right? Like we're unusual.
Unless you're an orca.
Like humans have 2 nipples because, I wonder if there's never cetacean multiples.
I bet there are.
Do whales have twins?
That's a great thing to Google. That will change your search parameters. Do whales have twins?
Yes, cetaceans have multiples, but it's less than 1% of all births.
Right.
Do you think they're like, I feel like I got a whale in here?
It's hard to keep one whale baby alive. Imagine keeping 2 whale babies alive.
Well, especially in this economy.
I know. Talk about no salmon.
Yeah.
Although most whales don't eat salmon. But our local whales.
Our local whales do. For some reason, they're like, seals, not for us.
They love salmon, except...
I mean, if you were at a restaurant and you knew they had seals and salmon, you would order the salmon, right? And I think that's what we get from J&K pods. Like other pods traveling through, they've never been to the restaurant before, and they're just like, there's just seal, right? I'll have the seal.
But this is the thing. If you're an orca and you eat 1 seal a day, I think you're covered. But if you're a salmon-eating orca, you got to eat...
You just get eating salmon all the time.
You got to be eating salmon constantly.
But again, imagine this restaurant is a buffet, and you're like, you mean I can keep going back for more salmon? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll get the buffet.
But if I were a human living here, and you said, you get to make a hat and a coat out of either a seal or a salmon, I would pick the seal.
Exactly. Like, let's not pretend that seals don't have their advantages. We apologize to our seal-descended future listeners. I guess it had never really occurred to me that nipples are like nearly exactly correlation
with what your typical
litter size is. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Humans really don't often go over 2.
And there's bilateral symmetry. So like humans don't have one cyclops-like nipple in the middle, even though we're uniparous. Is that the word? But so, because it's divisible by 2. But, a dog or a cat would have
multiples.
Yeah, might have 8 nipples because they might have 8 babies.
But they don't grow new nipples when they have 8 babies.
That would be
always
crazy.
had 8 nipples.
No, they evolved. And it makes me wonder, did we evolve nipples away?
I bet we did.
Like, did our earliest mammalian, like me and a shrew, did our earliest ancestor have
the same number of nipples?
Yeah. Like, or a number of nipples in the middle? Like
so there were 4.
He had 4, and then he gained 10 to be a.
He gained the ones that we gave away.
That's right. The world always has a finite number of nipples.
That's right. And the shrews are walking around with my prehistoric nipples.
Then where were the nipples in dinosaur times?
Well, they were laying eggs.
Yeah, exactly. But if the world has a fixed number of nipples, they were on plants?
They were on protozoa.
Yeah, they were on protozoa. That's right. You're going to get angry letters again from the microbiologists. The animal, by the way, that has the most nipples because
I've been waiting. Did you Google this? Because your Google search history is going to be amazing. At the end of this.
I'm getting weird AI results.
What is
now.
the animal with the most nipples? Signed, Nipple Lover.
Never enough nipples.
Nipple Lover 68.
What was your guy? Never enough cars?
Never enough cars.
Yeah, I'm never enough nipples on all the auction sites. They know they see me coming a mile away. It was in fact an animal, a species I had never heard of, from an animal I had never heard of.
What? How is that possible?
In Madagascar.
That's how it's possible.
Yeah, Madagascar has its own weird.
It is a strange place.
Ecosystem, and so they evolved instead of where we would have rodents and moles and hedgehogs. They evolved one animal that then evolved into the shapes of rodents, moles, and hedgehogs to fill those different niches.
What? Is it called the smoot?
It's called the modentog. No, it's called the tenrec.
And the tenrec is the forebear of all rodents?
No, I think it just fills a rodent, mole, or hedgehog-like niche in their weird ecosystem. The same way they have lemurs instead of monkeys. Like, you know how they have off-brand Kirkland Industry monkeys and they call them lemurs? But they have weird rodents called tenrecs.
What is the niche between hedgehogs and moles? Like, what can a hedgehog do that a mole can't?
I think it evolved the hedgehog-like the spikes, the spines, and it's a little bit chonky.
I mean, I know a hedgehog and a mole do different things. A hedgehog once came up to me in the night.
And what did it do?
It just sniffed me and was just cute, and I woke up because I could sense there was something there, and I have animal reflexes.
Was this when you were walking across
have I told you about that?
country?
No, I was sleeping
Hedgehog
outside in the UK, and I wasn't walking at this point. I was
homeless.
I was just tramping, yeah. And I was sleeping in a park, and a hedgehog came up and sniffed me, and I woke up, and the hedgehog and I had a moment where it didn't run away.
Is it possible you were hallucinating the hedgehog?
I thought about that at the time because it was a misty night and I didn't instantly recognize that it was a hedgehog because I'd never seen one. I didn't know what it was.
And who knows what substances you'd ingested that might make one see a hedgehog where a hedgehog is not?
You know, just generally as a follower of the romantic movement, as we've established on earlier shows, I'm always open to the supernatural, the spiritual world coming to me in the form of
a hedgehog.
A hedgehog.
Why not?
And
was it glowing like a Force ghost from Star Wars?
It seemed like it because it was misty and there were the world was illuminated. And I don't know if you've had firsthand encounters with them, but they're magical, funny, cute.
They're great.
I saw one in Ballard once.
Really?
I was walking down again in the night.
Are they native here, or is it just an escaped pet? Right.
I was. You know that bar that's down kind of by Shilshole. I was walking along out there, not around the corner, not past the locks, but up the road. It's just some longshoreman's bar.
Yeah.
There was a hedgehog, and having met a hedgehog once before in my life, I said,
"Hey, do you know Liam?
You look like a hedgehog." And the thing was just, they seem very tame. And so I went in the bar and said, "Hey, does anybody in here, did anybody lose a hedgehog?" And then
everybody's touching their pockets.
And then I swear, this sounds like a dumb thing, a dumb anecdote that I would tell that couldn't possibly be true. But the bar emptied out. Everybody came out and there was a hedgehog and we all speculated on where it had come from. And it was just doing hedgehog stuff. It didn't.
I'm worried that there's not a good ecosystem for a hedgehog in by the Ballard Bridge.
The thing is, if they survive in the UK, I bet you they do great here. And this hedgehog had no other hedgehogs to compete with.
Sure.
I think somebody, if I recall correctly, this was a long time ago, if I recall, somebody from the bar scooped up the hedgehog and said, "I'll figure this out." Because that's what bars are for, right? There's always one guy that's
community.
Like, "I'll figure this out." And then I was like, I have somewhere else to be.
You're like, I'm done with this anecdote.
I kept trumping.
I'm ducking out of this story right now. Who knows what happened? Well, in Madagascar, they don't have hedgehogs. They have tenrecs that have evolved into the hedgehoggian niche.
And how does a tenrec compare to a mole or a hedgehog or a beaver or whatever you said?
I mean, I
Are
don't
they
know.
bigger, smaller?
I don't know. They look like a hedge. The tailless tenrec can have up to 29 nipples.
That's the thing that
That's
distinguishes
the thing that
them.
distinguishes them.
They're basically, instead of the spines of a hedgehog, they're just covered with nipples.
All nipples.
But wait, an odd number.
That's interesting. You're right. 21 to 29. Opossums have 13 nipples. So I guess not everything has perfect. But it also suggests that they vary. Like you might just, like imagine if you see a human on the street and you're like, I wonder if that guy's got 2 nipples or 5.
There are people with a rogue nipple.
Yes. But not like, but if you were asking how many nipples a human had, you would not say
Between
21 and 29.
between 13 and 11.
This kind of implies there's a bell curve where 20% of them have 23, 30% of them have 24.
I have learned so much in this episode already.
And we haven't even talked about the Dionne quintuplets. Should we just end right now?
I mean, I see possums all the time, and I had no idea how many nipples they had, nor had it ever occurred to me to wonder.
Well, this comes from my friend AJ. He writes these experiential journalism books I'm going to follow every commandment in the Bible for a year. I bet hijinks ensue.
Well, I always thought that I should be one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat a pizza a day.
There you go. What will happen? You'll get...
I would be in very bad shape.
Yes. Often the results of his books are often equally predictable. Like, I'm going to read the Encyclopedia Britannica. What's going to happen? It turns out he becomes very annoying.
He doesn't become Malcolm X.
Yeah. I'm going to go to prison and read the Encyclopedia Britannica. I guess if instead of going to prison, you just do it in your Park Slope apartment, annoying your family.
That is annoying.
You do not become Malcolm X.
I really wanted to be Paul Thoreau for a long time. And
Not too late.
It kind of isn't.
Go to Nicaragua. Why not?
Well, I feel like, did you ever read Pillars of Hercules?
No.
Well, it was a good book.
He's a great travel writer.
It was this type of thing where it was like, I'm going to go from one pillar of Hercules to the other, except not by boat.
I'll go around.
I'm going to go around.
Ken, did I ever tell you about the time I walked across the Mediterranean?
And I should be, that's really what I should be doing. That's what God put me here to do.
Anyway, I asked him what his favorite fact from the Britannica was, and he said, opossums have 13 nipples.
Really?
That's a good answer.
And he said, opossum.
You always say possum?
I do.
Because you're a man of the people.
Yeah, I'm a country squire.
Yeah. Opossums are not native here, so you're not a man of the country here.
We have got possums all over.
Well, we've got a ton of them, but they're all escaped pets. They're not.
Can that be true?
They are not. Endemic? That's not right. Indigenous.
Surely
Yes.
the possums are from here. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're getting squished by cars, but that's because they were unsuccessful pets.
They're Virginia possums. Look at that.
Yes, Virginia.
Introduced to Washington in the early 1900s. What?
You're looking at the word opossum and just saying possum. You can't do that. It's not a silent O.
I do it all the time, and you can't stop me. They get along with cats.
I did not know that.
Is
Is that your favorite fact from the Britannica?
I've seen them multiple
Despite
times.
not having read it?
I've seen them multiple times eating out of a cat dish with the cat.
Oh, nice.
And they sit and happily share a bowl of cat food.
The cat can sense this is a marsupial. It looks like me, but it's a whole different evolutionary thing. It's like a tenrec and a hedgehog.
Yeah. And I feel like a cat looks at it and goes, maybe make friends with this. This thing's just a little bit...
Like it needs me?
Like I would fight a dog.
I mean, cats are a little bit pissy, but you're saying the cat can sense there's no rivalry there, or
Yeah, somehow.
the cat does a good deed?
I mean, the possum also hisses at you.
Yeah, maybe the cat's like, ooh, this thing actually outranks me in the pissiness index, the same way raccoons do.
Yeah, right, but a raccoon will eat a cat.
Because of their multitude of nipples, tenrecs can have litters of up to 32 kids.
Good gravy.
That would change your life, right? What to expect when you're expecting 32 baby tenrecs.
Now, here we are in the bunker. Now picture suddenly 32 infants in 32 car chairs.
Do they just appear on the floor like pop, 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 pop,
Pop,
pop,
pop,
pop,
pop, pop, pop. Now, what would the first thing we did be? What would we do? Who would we call?
I feel like my will would have to change. I'd call my insurance very quickly.
But I mean, would this be a spiritual crisis for you? Like, not only there are 32 babies to care for, but also where did they come from?
I mean, that's
This is going to challenge our
It's the opposite.
cosmology.
It's the opposite of the leftovers. It's like the opposite of the rapture. Babies suddenly appear all over America's basements.
That's right. I might call some of my friends and be like, did 32 babies show up at your house?
What if there's a version of the rapture where just new people appear? It's like, no, I'm Dave. Yeah, but you weren't here a second ago. I don't know. I'm Dave. It's a mystery. Who knows who will get a Dave and who will not?
Wow, that would complicate things.
I think
especially in like China. Hi, I'm Dave. Like, what?
I don't even understand that. Well, so far it hasn't happened. I keep looking around waiting now. I think I'd be happy.
I think I would too.
Because babies cheer me up. We went to dinner last night with some friends who had a baby, and when we walked in and we saw they hadn't got a sitter, we were both so happy.
Did you get to hold the baby?
Got to, because they had to cut their steak. You know,
Right.
they had it was a 2-hand operation.
So you guys are bouncing a little baby. Oh, that's the best.
We ate in shifts, and
so
our kids might never have babies. They don't seem to have their stuff together.
You never know.
You never know.
I was having lunch with somebody the other day, and she said, "Yeah, I don't think I'll have kids." She's in the kid times, and I said, "Oh, really?" And it was not. It was no judgment. I was just like, "Oh, interesting." But she, as soon as I said, "Oh, really?" she was like, her facial expression changed, and she was like, "I mean, I don't think so, but
Is that wrong?
but I don't know, maybe." And I was like, "Whoa! Conversation's now taking a turn. What should we be talking about? Would you like to?"
No wrong answers here. No wrong answers in this space.
I think 32 babies would really lighten up this place.
It would. I mean, just one was a game changer. But I don't want more babies. I just want restaurant babies. You know, like I don't want a nursery.
I would need some help.
But imagine a world where suddenly multiple babies appear. This happens to Americans every year. They think they're having a baby, and they're not. They're having 3 babies.
I feel like it always happens below the Mason-Dixon line. Am I wrong?
Well,
It doesn't seem like a thing that happens in Chicago as much.
Well, it's a question of, I mean, so the incidence of multiples has gone up quite a bit. Twins and up.
No, really? It's more common.
Well, yeah, because of, we'll get to it.
Because of fertility.
There we go, because of IVF. So in 1980, there were 19 multiple births per 1,000, twins and up. Whereas,
That really seems like a lot.
yeah, it's like 2% of all births.
19 per 1,000. Wow.
And I don't think you're counting the twins twice in there. Whereas in 2022, it had gone up like 70-something%. 32 live births out of 1,000 are now multiples. And if you limit it to triplets and up, this was actually sharply on the rise. The natural incidence of having triplets and up, if you're just a human going about your business, do unprotected sex, 1 in 10,000 live births is a little triplet surprise.
Pretty unusual.
Or more, yeah. Whereas the numbers actually peaked in 1998 when it was actually more like 1 in 500. There were 193 triplet and up births out of every 100,000 American births. And that was because of fertility treatments like in vitro that implant multiple embryos into the mom parent just to allow for a greater chance of a healthy baby.
Right.
But the I guess the best practices have kind of coalesced around
Don't do that.
Yeah, not doing that so much, to the degree that it has dropped from its 1998 peak, and it's now something in the order of 74 multiples, triplets and up out of 100,000. That's closer to 1 in every 1,350 births. Now give you triplets and up. But can you imagine
seems
still?
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that includes people for whom it's not a surprise. Like, yeah, we put in 4 embryos. We thought we knew it might happen. I guess we're going back to Babies R Us. That's not a thing.
Babies R Us?
I guess we're going back to Baby Gap. Is that still a thing?
No, we're calling the stork. That's what we say here on this program.
Oh, is that right? We don't reveal that Babies R Us used to be a store.
Babies R Us. No, that actually was a store.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see.
I'm not saying where the babies come from. I'm
Right.
saying where the gear.
Where the baby stuff
Imagine
comes from.
Guitar Center, but for babies. What do you call that?
Are they still playing Stairway to Heaven at the Babies R Us?
That's correct. But it's on one of those like Max Rebo like keyboards that surrounds you.
That or the dancing one from Big.
Oh, right. Do they sell those at Baby Gap?
Ding, 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 ding.
They used to have one at FAO Schwartz, like in the movie, and I wanted to get on and do the thing, but there was a line of 20 dads who wanted to get on and do
do
Heart and Soul and Chopsticks. So I never got a chance. But there's still, even with the more kind of conservative approach to a lot of these fertility treatments, 1 in 1,300 births are still triplets.
Let me ask you, do you know any triplets?
I do.
Go on.
You mentioned south of the Mason-Dixon line, and I was going to say, in your mind, is Utah south of the Mason-Dixon line? And the answer is geographically no, but culturally, absolutely. A lot of states that have bigger families tend to have more
religiosity.
And more aggressive fertility treatment sometimes.
I always think of it as being just a more aggressive baby making.
Well, that too.
In the sense of like, this is what God intends, rather than the San Franciscans and Seattles who are like,
oh no, I'm 40 and I never had a baby.
Yeah.
Time to go to the doctor. I think in states where family size tends to be larger, you have the corresponding, like you actually have the greater heartbreak of, I haven't had kids, and it's not just because there's two paths for me and I'm going to choose the other. It's really like heartbreak that I can't fulfill my dream of parenthood.
Yeah, God has smote me.
Or my husband.
My husband has smote me. Hopefully not.
No, my God has smote my husband.
Oh, my God has smote my husband.
With a low sperm count.
Yeah, that's usually what it is. Because they're all working at the uranium plant.
That's right. Everyone in Utah works at the uranium plant, and then when the whistle blows, they head home for some unprotected sex in hopes that the radiation has not taken effect.
But all
yet.
the sperm are like,
they've all got 19 tails like a Tenrex nipples. So Mindy's cousin, they already had a kid, so it wasn't some like ironclad fertility scenario. I don't know their IVF history, but at some point they implanted.
Wait, you don't know their IVF history? Isn't that something that Mormons do?
Should I call them now?
Ring, ring.
Hey, just wanted to let everybody on the chat know. When Mindy and I were first married, her cousin's wife had just given birth to triplets.
Did that give you pause when you and Mindy first married? Where you were like, oh, is this a family thing?
They had us babysit. Well, we knew that they had implanted multiple embryos.
Oh, it was an implant thing.
We knew that we were not going to face the genetic barrier of, we have triplets every time.
Well, so do you think if it wasn't for implantation IVF stuff that we would revert to the native
the rate is still 1 in 10,000.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That doesn't mean that our radiation has changed us. It just means that that's what it is in America today due to our norms around fertility treatment. Yeah. The labs are helping us get up to 1 in 1,300. And it really, I don't know if we would have had kids sooner, except that they had us babysit for the triplets pretty often.
And so how did you like it?
It was a nice change of pace from being childless, because suddenly you are in like an 80s movie, a crazy baby foods getting smeared everywhere like you've been Freaky Friday'd or Mr. Mommed.
But the thing about 3 babies is either one person has to have 2 babies, or one baby you have to put down on the floor for a while.
I thought you were going to say put down. Or one baby you have to put down.
One baby you have to drown in the river.
Went to a farm upstate.
No, but that, twins, everybody has a baby.
Even odds, yeah. It's 2 to 2.
But yeah, what do you do with the
triplets
third
and up,
baby?
you are always outnumbered. That's a huge problem, which is probably kind of biologically what's kept the numbers at 1 in 10,000 all these years. That 2, at least you have 2 arms and 2 nipples. 3, all bets are off.
You got to have a grandmother.
All bets are off. Yeah, and the modern tools of bouncy chairs and porta cribs and baby Bjorns. A lot of these are words I have not thought of or said in over 15 years. I'm starting to get flashbacks. But yeah, when their parents would travel, like, we're going to China for a week. We're going to Australia for a couple of weeks. Will you guys watch Nick and Jake and Zach?
Oh, wait, they wouldn't just have you babysit while they went to the movies?
Sometimes it would be.
Will you watch these 3 babies for a week or more?
And
my God.
But they did have a nice house with a movie room, and we were pretty poor. So we were like.
Oh, wait, you'd stay at their house.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, we weren't going to take 3 babies in our terrible apartment.
I'm just trying to.
They would have called
picture
CPS on us. So yeah, it was us, and it was 2. We were outnumbered 4 to 2 because they had an older son as well.
What kind of friends do you Utahns have? Oh, I guess it's a relative.
Yeah.
But still, 4 kids? Will you watch our 4 kids while we go on a...
And well, you just have to adjust it down. Like there, asking someone to watch your 4 kids is the Seattle equivalent of would you watch my 1.6 kids? You know,
Right.
Or would you water my plants?
You know, my daughter's mother/partner can't be away from her child for 5 hours without having an anxiety attack, and our kid is almost 14.
Well, either Mindy's cousin is healthier or less loving.
Yeah, well, could be.
Little from column A, little from column B. So I had firsthand experience with and it really is a circus. It's never ending because I think they were all still in diapers? The first time they might all still have been in diapers, so that's a constant.
Oh my God, you're filling up a
assembly
dumpster
line,
with diapers.
Basically, bedtime is kind of a whack-a-mole because you don't just have to get one kid to decide. Yeah, I'm tired. You have to get 3 kids to decide at the same time that they're sleepy, and they would have this ecosystem where it wouldn't just be like having a baby times 3. Because there would be feedback effects of they set each other off,
Right.
They enjoyed having, naughty little compatriots.
And did they develop their own little weird language? Did they
They did not have triplet language.
Pretend to be the other and put on a bow tie and then run out of the room?
Have horror movies decided if triplets are creepy? No, right? There's no movie where 3 triplets talk in unison, right?
No, they're cute. Babies are cute. In America, at least.
Yeah.
Babies are cute. We've never had, other than Chucky, who was a doll.
But horror movies have taught us that twins, once they get us to a certain age, are creepy.
See, this is the thing. I don't know if I've known a triplet because a lot of times they go to different colleges.
Right. They don't carry around their 2 triplets, one on either side of them.
So you meet somebody and you have to get to know them pretty well to learn I'm a triplet.
By the way, I'm a triplet.
One of my siblings is at the University of Arizona and one of my siblings is in trade school or joined the Navy.
There was somebody I knew pretty well who years later I learned had a twin. And that was like, what?
Yeah, that happens.
There's another you running. It was because when it's identical, then it's like, oh wow, because sometimes you meet them.
Yeah. I knew twins in grade school, Thomas and Peter.
Yeah, but you always know both of your childhood twin friends.
And they were identical twins that fooled everybody, but not us. I look at them even now probably and tell you who was Thomas and who was Peter. Ken, if you know one thing about me, it's that I do not like going to the doctor. I'm too busy to go to the doctor. I don't even believe in the doctor a lot of the time. I went 10 years without ever visiting a doctor. And when I finally did visit a doctor, you can imagine how thrilled she was to learn about all the cobwebs she was going to have to clear out just to see what the problem was. And of course, the problem was, I don't know what. I had a broken hand and hadn't dealt with it. I don't remember. It's too hard to find a doctor. And all the time, I wake up with some kind of pain, and I do what people from my family have done for generations, which is ignore it and hope it goes away. But there's now an option for finding a doctor that if this had been here a decade ago, 2 decades ago, I might be a much healthier person today. What I'm talking about, Ken, is ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments. This is the key thing. This is the thing that bounces me out of the system so often. Find a good doctor. Oh, sorry, they're not in network. Find an in-network doctor. Oh, sorry, they're not taking any new appointments. But there are more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, all on ZocDoc. And appointments made through ZocDoc happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. This is a market improvement over the 6-month wait I endured the last time I tried to find a doctor. Oh, yeah, sure, we're taking appointments. How's August, is what they said. So if you're like me, and you haven't been to the doctor for a long time, or you've got aches and pains that you haven't diagnosed, or you can't manage to navigate all this insurance hullabaloo, stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/omnibus to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/omnibus. ZocDoc.com. Ken, listen. ZocDoc.com/omnibus.
Because the rates of these super multiple births, triplets and up, are rare, and they're not those kind of births are not correlated with healthy outcomes. You know, like it's not always the easiest on mom to give birth to 3 or 4 or 5 kids.
Right.
To the degree that there's actually no record of quadruplets even being born until 1750, when there's a newspaper account of a Irish fisherman named Smith, who's in Kinsale, Ireland, whose wife gives birth to quadruplets. And
so in ancient times, it would have been a supernatural event for 4 babies to survive.
Yeah, and maybe, to the degree that it was just unknown. In fact, and in the case of the Smiths of Kinsale, the babies did not survive. It wasn't until 1880 that we have evidence that, modern medicine and health practices get good enough that a Swiss set of quadruplets does survive to adulthood.
Wow. And were they famous their whole lives?
I think it was kind of a news of the weird thing. No, I don't think they were. This is the first time I could find really the newspapers kind of taking notice in a big way, like, these are characters, let's follow them, is in April 1896 near Paducah, Kentucky. A woman, a Mrs. Lyon, gave birth to 5 babies.
This checks out. Paducah, Kentucky.
Which she named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Paul. She didn't pick a good theme for quintuplets, is the problem.
Right. She had the 4 and then...
I don't know, what do you pick in... What's a famous fivesome in 1896? The 5...
5 Musketeers. D'Artagnan and Artemis and... No, Greek gods. What about Greek gods?
Except there's 12, but you have your pick.
You pick the good ones.
You should not pick a group smaller than the number of babies you have to name.
You don't want to call one Zeus or Hades, but what are the good ones? Like,
I guess Paul is a good 5th baby because, biblically, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, they write the early books of the New Testament, and then Paul comes traditionally...
Bats cleanup.
Paul Bats cleanup. I guess John is bad at cleanup. Paul, you're getting to the bottom of the order. I guess the problem back then is that bottle feeding was not a thing.
Oh, so you had to have a wet nurse.
She gives birth to these babies prematurely. They are not in good health, and she just is not able to feed them.
Oh, no.
And it's a sad story. Within 3 weeks, they have all effectively starved to death.
Oh, no.
None of them. This is not the happy part of the story.
Boo.
But it gets worse once we get to Canada. Don't worry. It's kind of an odd story. Maybe this was the style of Kentucky at the time. They were such a curiosity. Crowds had thronged into their home. Thousands of people in the 3 weeks of life got to gawk at the Lyon quintuplets.
And then they died of being...
overexposure.
Yeah, touched.
Yeah, they died of what is the thing that babies get? So you're supposed to not take your baby out?
Croup?
Something. It's not croup, but it's something like that. Yeah, but apparently it just appeared that she couldn't nourish them. They wasted away.
In my experience, when you have a baby, there are always ladies who love babies, who have their own babies, but their babies are not cute anymore. And then they come around in a very friendly way. Can I hang out with you and help you?
Perhaps none of them were lactating in this case?
Seems like it, yeah. Or it might not have been a cultural thing at that moment in time.
Upon the sad deaths of young Matthew, Mark, Luke, John,
all 4,
and Paul,
all 5 died.
Yes, within 3 weeks.
Jeez.
Oh, it just occurred to me that it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and then John and Paul.
Oh, okay.
You got half the Beatles too. If she had septuplets,
Ringo,
she'd be already Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Richard.
The babies after their sad death had been such a local occurrence that instead of being laid to rest, they were embalmed and placed on display in the undertaker's window.
This seems like pretty dark.
It gets darker. There's a request for them to be mummified and taken on the vaudeville or the freak show circuit. So her babies are then mummified and exhibited around the country. And at some point, the National Museum of Health in Washington, D.C. acquires the babies. And this is a great comfort to Mrs. Lyon, who apparently there's correspondence of her writing to the National Museum of Health being like, hey, do people go to see them? Like, does President Coolidge like the babies? I guess that can't be. I think it was in the 20s, so it could be. And they reassured her that, everybody loves the Quints. If the president ever comes by, we'll let you know. But Mrs. Lyon lived into the 70s, which meant she was writing letters to... Oh, no, this is not true. I think she was still writing letters to the government, but as late as the 70s, her family is still writing to the government trying to get...
The babies back or trying to get Gerald Ford to go see them?
Trying to get the mummies released. Like she writes letters to Gerald Ford. Wow. Or somebody in the family does. And as late as the 70s, the position of whatever the National Museum of Health and Medicine, I think that's right, the NMHM, their position is, I'm sorry, the mom wanted this for the babies. So relatives will be like, please bring them home to Kentucky. We'll have a burial. And the NMHM is like, no, mom was very clear. The Quints belong to science now.
The Quints are like the Elgin marbles of the Smithsonian Institution.
Kentucky's like, we've got a beautiful place all lined up to display them. Please return our mummy babies. And the museum's like, this is very problematic. We understand there are complexities, but no, sorry.
But no. And is that still their position? Are the babies still in some Indiana Jones warehouse?
As far as I can tell, the babies are not on display, but are still part of the collection of remains of the National Museum of Health and Medicine.
Wow.
In Washington, D.C. But what that meant is that Mrs. Lyon lived long enough to see her little local nightmare, thousands of people showing up and basically draining the life out of her vulnerable quintuplets, become an international news story. Because on May 20th, 1934, let's shift our scene to the tiny hamlet of Corsair, Ontario, which is, it's kind of up from whatever that triangular peninsula part of Ontario is that hangs down by Detroit and Windsor.
Yeah, the dewlap of Canada.
Yeah, what do we call that? It's kind of pointy.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of there once you're in it.
What is it, the shape of it? It's like a weird tri-tipped spear point or something. Do Canadians have a name for their little udder?
They must.
Their little dangly bits?
Yeah, it's called a timbit.
Yeah, they call it the timbit.
and it dangles down. No, it's called it's
the hockey stick.
Toronto is technically on it.
No, Toronto is on it. It's where I'm sure 98% of Canadians live on this landform. I just don't know. Right. I just don't know what they call it.
It's called, I don't know what it's called. The Simcoe London Isthmus. It is. If it is an isthmus, it is an isthmus.
It's got an
ish.
It's got an What does it look like to you? Like, what would you call that shape? Is it a frond? Is it a...
No, I would think of it more as a bulb.
It's a bulb.
Doesn't it seem like a bulb if the stem was down at Detroit and the mass of it, the greatest mass? Oh, no, it kind of looks like a mitten or a dragon head.
Oh, a dragon head. That's what I can see.
Yeah.
Because Michigan's got kind of the mitten thing sewn up.
Yeah, what if it's called the dragon head? It actually looks like a dragon.
Those of you who live in the bulb of Canada, please tell us what it's generally accepted that your little isthmus looks like. But this is happening a little further north, almost to the Quebec border, as their French-Canadian name might have clued you in, on the Dionne family farm. A 24-year-old farmer's wife named Elzire Dionne goes into labor 2 months premature. The babies were supposed to be coming in the summer. Sorry, the baby, as far as she knows, is supposed to be coming in the summer.
Wait, she is a gigantic with child and still thinks it's a baby, not a baby's.
I guess at that time, your country doctor might have been like, "Ooh, this might be twins."
Right.
But the fact is, she's so premature that it's not clear. Like when her quintuplets are born, you can carry each one in one of your hands, and the total weight of all 5 of them is under 14 pounds.
Whoa.
So these are tiny babies, perhaps of a kind that would not have survived in the era of the lion quintuplets, or
14 pounds is what a big baby weighs all by itself.
I mean, mom does not want to give birth to a 14-pound baby.
No,
that's
a
like
big baby.
nature's episiotomy, but I don't think it's a Guinness number.
No, it's a 9-pound baby. What are you looking for? 8-pound baby?
That would be a big baby today.
7
They
pound baby?
They didn't used to induce, so I think I was 10 or 11, and my brother maybe was bigger still, just because they would kind of let it go 6 weeks and see what happened. Today, that's not the practice. So baby weights they're probably down overall, even though though there are better ways to forestall premature.
Well, now that even if you don't want it, the internet will answer all questions with AI.
I love it.
You like it?
No.
You're like, hey,
it's the worst.
Chatty G. Yeah, and then it just fills up your screen with like, some people say.
And it sounds like a book report.
Yeah.
There are many and varied, in short, childbirth is a land of contrast.
But this says that a baby with a birth weight over 8 pounds is considered a large baby.
Is there a technical term? A chonker?
And if a baby weighs less than 5 pounds, it's considered a little baby.
That's a very narrow range then. Like
5 to 8.
Let's not body shame all these babies by saying their BMI has to be.
Well,
so
you were a
narrow.
10-pound baby, and look at you now.
Look at me now.
You're still a 10-pound baby.
It doesn't happen anymore though. Like they would have induced in my case. Little Pitocin 4 weeks earlier would have made all the difference. But because medical science has advanced since the Smiths of Kinsale and the Lions of rural Kentucky, Dr. Alan Defoe is able to deliver all 5 babies safely. And
hey, Dr. Defoe.
Dr. Defoe is not going to be the hero of the story.
Oh.
You are going to regret your clapping, my friend. You clapped 2 months prematurely, basically. Now, the surprise is, you might think, how do you think a parent would feel of suddenly having 5 new kids?
Well, as we established, if you and I, not even a romantic couple, had 32 babies, we'd both be pretty into it.
We'd be okay with it.
I think that if you were, it depends on if they were living in a 1-bedroom shotgun shack.
They're living in a little farmhouse. And here's the kicker. They are already the parents of 5 kids.
Oh my God.
So it's not like, oh no, we have 5 kids. Like even before the labor, they were like, hey, we have 5 kids. What's going to happen now?
So are they Catholics?
They doubled. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are French-Canadian Catholics. That'll figure into the story. And the doctor so the babies are named Yvonne, Annette, Cecile, Emily, and Marie-Reine.
So they're identical babies.
Yes. They are identical quintuplets, it develops. I think they all have multiple hilarious French middle names in the way that they do. All of them are named Marie, including Marie. Marie is named Marie, just more so.
Marie squared.
Marie more so.
Marie Tintin.
And by the, just within hours of delivering the 5 babies, Dr. Defoe cannot keep this earth-shattering news
Because it makes him famous.
to himself. Oh yeah, like he tells their uncle. He goes to the post office one town over and tells everybody at the post office, "You'll never believe what just happened to me."
Oh, doctor.
He goes into the store next door and tells the clerk and says, hey, you might want to call the local paper. But the uncle has already called the local paper. Everybody wants to get in on the act. It's an early incidence of celebrity culture. And I guess if you're living in Corbeil, Ontario in 1934, there's not a lot of chances at getting in the paper.
I mean, 1934, it was a downtime.
That figures into the story as well. It's a dark, depressed time in Ontario as well as elsewhere.
And this maybe was a cheery story at first?
A feel-good story, yeah. The North Bay Nugget sends a reporter and a photographer who immediately, take the kids, unsafely out of the warm butcher basket where their parents have kept them. They don't have anything high-tech. I'm not sure I can picture. Is a butcher basket just the thing with the 2 that you can open on either end, like a like a shopping basket.
Let's see. I don't think that would be easier for a butcher.
All 5 babies are stuffed in a butcher basket, but it could be the basket you take to the butcher's.
A butcher basket, what it looks like to me here is it's a basket.
Okay. So if I'm picturing like a picnic basket, I'm good?
It's a big basket. It doesn't really even necessarily have a lid. It's just a basket.
I hope it had well, maybe you don't want a lid. Maybe you want your quince breathing.
I think you want your quince breathing, but if it's your meat, I think you just put a little piece of fabric or a little piece of cheesecloth over it.
I guess I tricked you into saying basket. This is
basket.
This is a real
gasket.
A real milestone for omnibus. A tisket. So they take them out of their basket to get these amazing photos, which I'm sure is not good for these tiny, babies that are much smaller than a catcher's mitt.
It's not good for anyone to have pictures taken of you. We should all remain anonymous our whole lives.
No one should ever be in a picture.
You should maybe have like someone do an etching of you at one point in middle age.
The North Bay Nugget did not send an engraver.
The North Bay Nugget.
They sent somebody with one of those big old-timey flash bulbs, probably.
Yeah.
And the babies are all crying.
I feel like if I were the editor of the North Bay Nugget at the age I am now, I would have felt like my life had been I'd had a good run. If I were sitting...
Well, in 1934, you were probably like a keystone of the community.
Yeah, I would have a green visor. I'd have a garter on my sleeve.
Yep.
And I'd be like, send a man out there.
And
get this report.
And you'd know all the gossip.
I would.
In East Ferris Township or whatever.
North Bay Nugget.
So 6 hours old, they're already having to be posed. And this is a real foretaste of what is to come for these 5 kids. The wire service picks up the paper, and it is huge news. Thousands of people start to pour into this tiny town on the Ontario-Quebec border.
Oh, huge news like let's get in the car and drive 6 hours to see the little wet babies.
Yes, reporters are milling around, but also like people are coming from miles around, probably from 2 nations. All of North America is alive. And the fact that this happens honestly probably saves the kids' life because this farmhouse does not have electricity.
Oh, so it's like, but modern medicine comes trooping in the form of publicity.
In the form of the media, yeah. Like 2 reporters, reporters from Chicago and Pittsburgh, like get together and provide hot water heated incubators, Chicago and Toronto. That's game changing.
That's as good as you can get at the time.
For the quince right there.
Hot water.
I mean, that's probably literally life and death, the fact that they actually have incubators because they're 2 months premature for crying out loud.
Yeah, right. And what is an incubator in that situation? Is it just like a tent with...
I'm picturing a thermos. like it's a hot water heated... I mean, what are you doing? Are you boiling water? Does it boil its own water, or are you boiling water on the stove and pouring it in to a surround?
I mean, I guess what are you trying to do? You're trying to keep them. I mean, a trigger alert to people who don't like the word moist.
Yeah, you're trying to keep the babies at mom's womb temperature, not at room temperature.
Right, womb temperature.
I can bell myself.
You blinged yourself.
It's a little masturbatory, I guess. And hospitals mobilized. Shipping in breast milk. I mean, there might have been enough stories about the lion quintuplets that people realize this leads to bad outcomes.
Do you think that's what it is? Do you think there are enough instances where this has turned out badly and nobody wants to see these kids in jars?
Triplets and quadruplets are dying left and right.
Right.
And now we're like, this is the 1930s for crying out loud. We have science. We're going to send in breast milk. The Red Cross, sees a humanitarian situation in Quebec instead of China or Africa and sends in a nursing team. So that, if you're asking how do you deal with how do outnumbered parents deal? In this case, a team of Red Cross nurses is working around the clock.
Right.
But Dad is worried.
What does Dad do again?
Oliva Dionne is a farmer. Oliva. That's that doesn't strike me as a super French name.
Oliva?
Is it Oliva? Like Oliver, but with an accent?
Oliva?
I assume it's Oliva and it's some kind of Romance language.
Yeah, or he might be Basque, as we know.
Yeah, as we know, he might be Basque. That's the main thing I know about everyone. Is that you cannot say whether or no they be Basque.
That's right. That's right.
But he's worried. He's already got 5 kids at home. He was not planning on it's the Depression. He's a farmer. He's suddenly got 5 more mouths to feed. What's he going to do? And being in rural Catholic Canada, he goes, of course, to his priest.
Go to the priest. When has that ever been a bad idea?
And he already knows what the moral question is. Like, I'm going to get offers. Like, do I...
Offers?
Yeah, I've got reporters milling around my house telling me that I could write checks. Like, is this how I pay for my kid's future? Like, do I make the deal with the devil? And the priest, of course, offers the wisest, most spiritual advice he can. And he says, absolutely, and I'll be your business manager.
Sure.
He's a full service priest, this guy.
Sure.
That's how you know you got a good priest, when when he says the immortal phrase, and I'll be your business manager. So all paths on Omnibus lead through the Chicago World's Fair.
They do.
This is not the big 1890 Columbian one, 1890s Columbian one, but Chicago is having some kind of fair of the future, whatever, and they want to display the pride of Canada, the Dionne Quintuplets. And so
how do you display babies?
That becomes a big problem in this story. It's hard to display babies in a way that does not immediately feel like a exploitation.
Yeah, right.
Like a zoo.
Yeah, right. But this was the era of the, like you were saying, the kind of freak show, the the world's hairiest woman kind of thing. There were lots of instances of this.
And I guess thinking about this, acting as a baseline in a world where multiples generally die, I think it becomes key that we have to do something different. This isn't regular parenting. We're going to have to think outside the butcher basket here, folks, if we want Yvonne, Annette, Cecile, Emily, and Marie to survive.
So if I have this correctly, the idea is not just how do we keep these babies alive, but how could you possibly raise 5 identical babies?
Yes.
We're going to need
this
industrial...
this has got to be a 20-year solution, because this little farmhouse does not have room for 5 babies. So it's not just like, how do we get them to survive premature birth? It's what's the best way to raise bonus kids that no one has ever in the history of the world that we know of raised quintuplets past week 3.
Wow.
So it's a moonshot. And Oliva and his priest agree to take a 5-figure amount. That's back then, we're talking, that's got to be pushing $1 million today.
A 5-figure amount, go on.
To display their babies at the Chicago World's Fair for 6 months. There'll be a permanent exhibition at the expo, at the fair.
Wow.
And he immediately, as you might imagine, feels bad about himself and regrets signing this deal. He's got the instincts of a father.
Does he feel bad about himself, or does his wife say, you did what?
That is, neither of these people, they're in a bad situation. We will hear things that make them both appear to be bad parents.
Yeah.
But let's extend them at least a little charity of what would you do if you're a subsistence farmer with 5 dying babies on your hands?
Right. What would Jesus do? If he had 5 starving babies.
Boy, what a twist that would be.
We'll never know.
Walking around Galilee with babies climbing all over him.
Where did these babies come from, Jesus? You're not...
Pop. Their health starts to get worse, possibly because of their hectic lifestyle. The Chicago World's Fair is not letting Mr. Dionne out of the deal. They're insisting that they need to come to Chicago, even as they're starting to languish and ail.
Oh, wait, so they're not even in Chicago and they're already doing poorly.
That's right. So these Red Cross nurses seal off a room in the house that becomes Babyland, and
the baby's in the bubble.
Yeah, and it's a bubble. And in fact, the parents no longer have parental access to their kids.
Oh.
They get to see them occasionally.
This was the style of the time.
They are sealed in the sense that the germ theory of medicine has been discovered, and for the most part that saves billions of lives.
Yeah.
But here it becomes therefore these babies have to be in a monastery, basically.
Right. Mom is going to pollute them as much as any rando.
Right. And in fact, it leads to a series of product endorsements and it tends to be things like Lysol and sanitized, these are the cleanest mattress covers you can buy. I even trust my quintuplets to them. And soaps, but also Heinz ketchup and Quaker Oats,
Right.
Lifesavers. People are being told to buy everything from bread to ice cream because these 5 cute babies are telling them to. They are the Brian Cox of their time. They will do ads for literally anything.
Is this the first instance of that?
Celebrity endorsement?
I mean, or like...
It's definitely the first celebrity endorsement under 6 months old.
Right. Unwitting celebrity
There were
endorsement.
absolutely movie stars and
Yeah.
athletes appearing on different kinds of print advertising. But yeah, the fact that you would put your babies in it seems to be a new threshold in consumerism.
Right. And that was a great REM record.
Now, what happens here to solve the problem is big government steps in.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness for the province of Ontario.
And this is who is the Prime Minister of
Canada in the 20s?
In the 30s, right?
Oh yeah, right. We're in the mid 30s.
I mean, the Queen is still in charge.
I always just guess Mackenzie
the king would
King,
have been
but I'm
then.
decades off actually.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, a lot of this stuff is happening at the provincial level.
Oh,
So it's the equivalent of a governor. It's the Premier of Ontario
right.
who actually kind of emerges as the deciding voice here. And
What if the Premier of Ontario was the deciding voice now?
in everything,
In just even disputes like at our level.
like domestic disputes, you're like, no, like you told me you were going to bring that in from the car. It was never in the car. I left it at your mother's. Well, honey, let's call the Premier of Ontario. He or she, quite possibly today, will know what to do.
We should have a little thing here, like a magic 8-ball called the Premier of Ontario.
It's actually the Premier of Ontario's head, and we get a new one every time the premiership changes. But it's got the floating triangle, so we shake it up.
We shake it and it says, "Oh, outlook is hazy."
Let's ask the Honorable whoever, Madeline Prinkapop, and then we shake her up. That is not the name of the Premier of Ontario.
Madeline Prinklepop.
The Attorney General's Office of Ontario offers, hey, we'll help out here. What if you sign over custody of the girls to the Red Cross? We have a guardianship.
Don't trust the government. Again, more evidence to indicate.
But what if your other options are death or shady Chicago-based carnival keepers? You basically got death or P.T. Barnum.
Let me ask you this. Could the Red Cross take custody of 5 babies today?
Yeah, the legal guardianship issues here seem a little hazy. But yeah, I think in general, parents are allowed to assign guardianship if the state is on board.
Assign guardianship. Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I don't know if you could pick an international aid organization to raise your baby. If nothing else, they'd have to consent, right?
Right.
Hey, Doctors Without Borders, you're no longer Doctors Without Babies.
Could my mom sign over
Guardianship of you?
guardianship of me to you? Because
I think she effectively did. It seems like you used to call her when you have banking problems, and now you often call me or Mindy. Like, don't I get the text sometimes now?
Can you imagine if Mindy were in charge of my nutrition? I would be a lot healthier than I am.
But they think this will solve the legal problem. The Red Cross is not bound by the agreement the dad signed.
Right.
And the Red Cross is into this. They're like,
Oh, because this trumps the Chicago World's Fair. It's the Red Cross.
right, we're gonna get you out of this.
Got it.
We have more oomph than these carnies in Chicago.
And that was big oomph time for the Red Cross.
It's the Red Cross.
Yeah, right.
And they have agreed, they're into this, they have agreed to build a big state-of-the-art hospital across the road from the Dionne farmhouse. Because the farmhouse does not have room for 5 babies, like, for long.
But
the babies are no longer smaller than a catcher's mitt.
This is a hospital that has one purpose, which is to keep the babies alive. It's not like it's going to be a community hospital.
It's also an urgent care. No, it's not. You're right. It's just a private hospital.
I see.
As all hospitals used to be. Like the idea that
Oh, right.
a hospital is a public thing is kind of a modern innovation. So this is just a private care. We would call it child care. And so the babies move across the street to this brand new facility it's run by Dr. Defoe, who is loving his new life.
So that's pretty great because they may have signed over responsibility for the babies, but the parents are still there in their daily life.
In theory, yes. However, once the girls are moved, the Dionnes hardly ever see them. The babies are still in their sterile space. This is what it's going to take.
Yeah.
Even when the parents get some visitation, because again, they have to ask now for visitation from the new guardians.
Right.
They don't get any time alone with them.
Are they like 5 and 6 years old now, or are they?
No, the babies are still babies.
Still babies. Okay.
The babies, and this was only supposed to last 2 years. But again, you can't trust your Canadian nanny state because just months after the babies move across the street to this new hospital, the Premier of Ontario, somebody shakes his head, and he decides that there should be a bill that would permanently strip the Dionne quintuplets from their parents' custody. Their legal guardianship should be extended until they're adults, basically.
Is this partly because they have already indicated they're bad parents by giving their babies away to the Red Cross?
I think it's more like they and their small town priest signed a deal with a shady American carnival, with a World's Fair. But I think the idea that it's unclear why he thinks this is good policy or politics. But what he announces is like, these parents are going to exploit these babies for the good of the children.
Wow.
We need to protect them from their, money grubbing parents.
I mean, this for the good of the children business was very popular for decades.
It's been used to defend a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And in this case, at least it's only 5 people, but it is ruining their lives because they live in this very rural part of Canada. The media impression of the parents is that they're bumpkins.
Yeah.
Like these hayseeds can barely read or write, much less raise 5 extra babies.
Right.
And so they're in the media now saying, no, we do not want this. We could be good.
No, we do not want
this.
this.
We could be good parents. I mean, that's not whatever awful Quebecois accent Celine Dion talks in, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And we can't do it. But to no avail, the bill passes, and the kids become
wards of
the province of Ontario.
Now, are they being fed with formula now? Does Borden Company or whomever, Bourdon, are they
Canada,
making?
it's Bourdon.
Are they making canned milk, or are they? How are they being fed?
I think it's the breast milk is still being shipped in, but as they grow up, the best scientific. Dr. Defoe is using the best scientific means possible to give them all the nutrition they need. It's a technocrat's dream.
Right.
We've had this difficult rural situation, but we have applied science and medicine.
Science.
And now it's solved. And the babies will never be exploited is the underpinning of the whole thing.
Oh, have they been now anonymized? Like they're taken out of the public eye and given new quaint names
given new secret
protection?
identities all over Canada, one in each province. No, they are. But just the promise of the whole thing was the parents can't sign any more shady deals.
Yeah.
Sorry, vaudeville. Ontario's in charge, and everything's going to go great. And
sorry, vaudeville. Ontario's in charge. If you can make us T-shirts that say "Sorry, vaudeville. Ontario's in charge," we will wear them. I swear to you, I will wear it.
Should that be the new? New omnibus T-shirt or the new omnibus slogan?
I feel like
we should sell merch.
Sorry, vaudeville.
At least I don't want to say anything about the government of Ontario today, mostly because I'm completely ignorant and don't want to look it up. But in the mid-1930s, it turns out they are not to be trusted. Mm-hmm. They immediately begin exploiting the quintuplets to within an inch of their lives. So this hospital where they're across the street where the babies are living and separated from their parents and siblings, it's actually got like an elliptical play area in the middle. And the reason why it's an ellipse is so it can be kind of a covered arcade with a walkway around it with a series of one-way screens so that the maximum traffic of tourists can pass through and observe the quints at play.
They're exploiting these babies like you wouldn't believe.
The literal blueprints of the hospital are a baby zoo. Like exploitation is built in to the New Deal. So every day, thousands of people pour in, and hot dog stands and souvenir shops pop up. The parents are reduced to running a souvenir shop for their own children.
Oh, geez.
The midwives who delivered the kids, Soeur Celine and Soeur Celeste, whatever their names are, they're running the hot dog stand.
I would think that the mom would still be a figure of fascination, that people want to, people would want to shake her hand, or at least, I don't know what.
Yeah, why can't mom sign a deal? I guess mom is not as cute as the babies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at this point, we want to picture the babies as these angelic symbols of Canada. And, divorced from their kind of, what the papers have implied as their kind of grubby rural upbringing.
Mom has a hairy wart on her nose and
Yeah.
is from Ontario.
Boo.
I mean, that just says it all.
Not just Ontario, but not the nice part of Ontario.
The French part of Ontario.
Some weird place where someday Alice Munro will abuse her kids, But at the time, these guys are.
Ken is against Canada. We've established that. I'm just playing along with him. I'm really baiting him because I love Canada.
It is funny that you hear from Australians who think that I'm making fun of them when really Canada's the real enemy.
I hear from Canadians too. They all know not to write you because A,
I'm too powerful
you're
for them.
too powerful and they don't want to be smote by your mitre. And B, people just like yelling at me. It's something in my personality.
Can you really smite somebody with a mitre? If you're a mitre smiter?
You might them with a smiter.
A mitre is like a hat. It's not like a mace.
Oh, right. Right. I meant mace.
When you said mitre, what were you picturing?
A mace.
A mace. Yeah, okay.
A mitre is the pointy hat. Yeah. And the mace
like
is the baton.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
Anyway, this is a boon for this part. This part of Canada is so remote that also the corollary of that is they could use the money. They are loving this Depression era boost.
The whole of Ontario, or at least this part of Ontario.
Yeah, I mean, people are pouring in. Ontario raises its provincial gas tax because motorists, there's been a discernible boost in outside motorists that they can gouge.
So they don't give Ontarians a card that gets them lower gas because they're like, we're just going to soak everybody. Gas is going from 2 cents a gallon to 4 cents a gallon.
It's the Canadian way. The motels appear all over this previously untouristed region, which are actually called quint cabins. It's so clear that the motels are only for Dionne tourism.
I believe I've stayed in one of those.
You stayed in a quint cabin?
Well, because I've driven through the French part of Ontario and stayed in some weird motels that seem like they do not belong in those little places, and maybe one of them was a quint cabin.
If you crunch the numbers, it becomes Canada's top tourist destination ahead of Niagara Falls.
Canada's, not Ontario's.
Right. Yeah. They're getting more visitors than Niagara Falls.
Well, now it makes sense that they built a baby zoo and took it away from the parents.
Yeah. This is all paying off. See, what's good for the state?
Yeah.
It's good for everyone. Collectivize the quintuplets. That's what I always say.
Listen, this is what the Democratic Party should get back to, its core values.
If people are going to accuse you of kidnapping children, why not just start kidnapping children?
Monetize babies.
Do you think the Democrats should start with multiples, or should they just collectivize all babies?
Well, the Democrats aren't in power anymore, I'm afraid. So they're going to have to
They could collectivize babies in their states.
Yeah, Washington could
Gavin
do it.
Newsom could start.
The thing is, this is
babies.
so Democrat because it's not only stealing babies, it's raising gas taxes.
It's the two things.
Both things.
The two things we love. So the idea is, now the province is not totally morally adrift, or at least they don't want the appearance of being morally adrift. What they say is, all this Dionne tourism coming in is going to go into a trust fund for the girls.
Oh, so not for all babies, but just for the girls themselves.
Yes.
They're going to be millionaires by the end of this.
The problem is there's no guardrails to keep anybody from ransacking the trust fund. So the trust fund is routinely just...
What about the priest that's a businessman?
Yeah, where's he at? The trust fund is routinely being dipped into every time they need to pay a bill at the hospital, or to upgrade, to make the caramel apple stand nicer, or to put in public restrooms for the tourists.
So the girls aren't necessarily going to go to McGill.
Exactly. If psychologists come in and want an expense account, without giving permission, the baby's college money is going to these, whoever can file a claim for it.
Grr.
The kids are having to do photo shoots. They're posed on their birthday with a massive 5-tiered cake, and at Christmas with all these presents. The presents are empty. The cake is a mock-up. The cake is a lie. Their life is a lie.
The Cake is a Lie would also be a great omnibus t-shirt.
It's already been taken by I think it's a video game.
The Cake is a Lie?
Yeah, sadly.
Boo.
It's a reference so old that even I know it.
Who moved my cheese?
And but they become movie stars. They go to Hollywood to appear in a series of movies about the fictional, I think, Wyatt Quintuplets.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a quintuplet movie franchise. 3
movies are made about the Wyatt Quintuplets. And of course, these are just, the toddlers are just seen kind of in B-roll playing around, whereas the actual action is, their heroic doctor is trying to arrange for a transfusion, or a pretty young nurse has a boyfriend who doesn't notice her. It's like the B plots in a Marx Brothers movie, basically.
Yeah, I see.
And then instead of Harpo playing the harp, occasionally you get babies playing with blocks.
There always does seem to be a beautiful young nurse in all Marx Brothers movies.
It's weird.
And you're like, how did you get here?
Oh, right. It's because Harpo and Chico are sexually harassing them. And Groucho. He's harassing Margaret Dumont.
Chico?
Yeah, it's Chico.
Whoa.
Isn't that weird? You know why?
What?
Because he was always after the chicks.
Is that right?
I almost think, I'm having deja vu. I think we might have had this conversation on Omnibus before.
Yeah, I don't take notes, as we know.
If you can remember the last time John learned that Chico Marx is mispronouncing his own name, please let us know. So they never leave the hospital. Their whole life is this Skinner box experiment of photography. And even though the screens are one way, of always knowing they're being observed.
So at the point that they became self-aware,
yes,
they were aware that the mirrors...
They can remember. And so they're always kind of putting on a little show their whole life. It cannot be healthy, a healthy way to raise a toddler, just to have no parental contact and yet always be, producing promotional material and doing little cute demos for...
It sounds like Drew Barrymore's life, except with 4 other siblings.
It's basically every child star. And, only some of them get away with it. So Oliva and Elzir Dionne want the family back together. The trust fund eventually pays for a big new 19-bedroom mansion on their land where they can all live together again.
Well, because there are 5 other siblings. What are they doing this whole time? Are they like, why do our 5 sisters...
Stewing in resentment.
Why do they get a fake cake?
If only you 5 had been born at the same time. Why can't you be more like your sisters?
So they have
being
19
born years
bedrooms,
apart.
10 kids, 2 grown-ups. Everybody gets their own bedroom.
I'm sure there's a series of nurses for the round-the-clock care they still need.
The priest probably.
At this point, the priest moves in. The midwives that were selling the hot dogs...
Chico Marx.
At this point, the kids are like 9. Am I doing the math right? 34. Yeah, the kids are like 9 pushing 10. But as you can imagine...
During the war.
Yeah, it's actually during World War II. That's true. As you can imagine, this kind of childhood has not led to a smooth home or healthy psyches. So the reunion does not go well. Mom does not know how to mom them and has a lot of resentments. So that leads to verbal and physical abuse. In the 90s, the 3 surviving Quints, I think there's only 3 alive in the 90s, actually alleged that dad sexually assaulted them. So it's very dark, the specter of unwanted touching. Although the other children denied this, but that's the rural Canadian way, right? Pretend dad is not touching the kids.
3 surviving claimed it, and the 2 dead ones denied it?
Well, don't forget there's the 5 others.
Oh, the 5 others, right.
They're less interesting because they don't look like each other. Can you imagine?
Oh, man.
I wish we looked like each other. Then we'd have a trust fund.
Unless 4 of them had big hairy warts on their noses, and then the one that didn't is like, couldn't I have been a Quint?
Annette did, even though these allegations came out in the 90s, Annette did tell their chaplain at their Catholic school, which, by the way, was like just for the 5 of them and some neighbor kids brought in to kind of normalize it. Like they brought in extras to be stand-ins at the Catholic school. And apparently she did tell the chaplain about the abuse, but everyone was afraid to do anything about, first of all, their money ticket, but also like just this fragile home situation, like what if the kids are pulled out of school because they start making noise? But, even into their teenage years, they have to keep dressing up in matching outfits for photos.
Really?
Their height and weight is reported by all. You want your weight in the Toronto Star every year when you're a teenage girl. That's always healthy.
Probably not. Were they like trained in the domestic arts? Did they go to school? Did they distinguish themselves in ways?
They were going to school, but it was actually a surprise when they started to leave the nest. Two of them go into convents.
Okay.
Almost immediately upon adulthood. And in fact, the smallest one, and the one who was born last, Marie, goes into the convent first, and her sister joins her. The older sister, who had become a nun.
Older by minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Slightly older. Has seizures. She's developing physical problems. And she actually does not. She dies at age 20. She's the first to pass. And the four surviving sisters have to pose next to the casket.
Oh, no.
Next to the open casket. They're still, even into adulthood, they don't really have any kind of escape from just this warping childhood of exploitation.
Right. Because they all think that without the others, they have no individual identity.
I guess. A lot of these details are from a pretty recent, Sarah Miller's recent book about the tragedy of their lives, which is probably the best treatment. This Washington Post write-up is just eye-opening. And Life magazine. I went to a Life magazine write-up, and they say, "Yeah, this was awful. By the way, we were complicit. Here's some awful quotes from Life magazine's coverage of the." It appears to be the kind of thing that nobody was questioning. Like, of course, this is for their own good. These kids have to be a public patrimony, which I don't think we would say today.
No, but I mean, at that point in time, we were also sterilizing people, and like there were terrible experiments being done on people.
Yeah, it's not just that bodily autonomy was not a non-negotiable like it is today for right-thinking people. It's that it wasn't even in the top 20 list of things you would consider. Right. There's a lot of other things going on here, like what's the centerpiece of the Chicago World's Fair going to be? Like, how could that be less important than bodily autonomy? Think how many people are going to come to that. Some of the kids went to nursing school. They were college roommates. Some of them married, although the marriages did not last. Basically, none of them had happy lives. Marie is the next to pass in 1970. There's no cause of death is given. I think there was a blood clot found in her brain, but she had also been battling depression. She'd separated from her husband, and her own kids had been placed in foster care. And she was found next to some of the abundant bottles of medication that she was trying to use to deal with her problems. So only 3 children remain as of the 1970s. Only 3 children live into their what would that be? Into their
not even
40s, into their mid 30s.
They are adorable. Now that I'm looking at pictures of them,
I wonder how much of it is that. If they had kind of been ugly babies, maybe the novelty would have worn off. But
they have a kind of Frenchness to them. Yeah, they're just.
I mean, the fact is that 5 identical babies have this inherent cuteness where even if they were not the cutest, chubbiest babies, you'd still be like, 5 identical babies. This is crazy. It's like a special effect. And in fact, the 3 surviving ones, Yvonne, Annette, and Cecile, all lived into the 21st century. And 2 are still alive today. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yvonne died in 2000, but Annette and Cecile are still alive today.
I'm looking now at a picture of them as grown-ups, and they are just awesome looking. They're extraordinary.
Yeah, the pictures of the 3 that were taken in the 90s, because in the 90s they came back into the public eye when it turned out they were all just battling poverty, and none of them had kind of received the stable, subsidized lives that, first of all Canadians expect.
Right.
And second of all, particularly if you have this 6-figure trust fund.
Is that right? They were now like poor.
They were broke. Yeah. And so one of their, Cecile had a son named Bertrand who had looked into the account, kind of the behind the music thing, and had realized just how much of the money that should have gone to them had just gone to stupid crap over the years.
Right.
He did kind of the first audit, and didn't really have any legal recourse, but in the court of public opinion, he could try to shame Canada into doing right by the Dionne. So they started doing media for the first time since Marie had died in the 70s.
Shame Canada is a great song.
Shame Canada. And I think it did lead to a settlement. There was a $4 million settlement.
Whoa, good on you, remaining Quints.
Except that Bertrand, the son who had done all the legwork here,
Stole all the money.
Apparently he had his own nefarious scheme in mind.
Come on, you were the hero of this story.
He ran
briefly.
off with the money. So as of 2019, when the book came out, Cecile, his mom, is still a ward of the state, living in a state-run facility.
Oh man.
The Washington Post writes, they rarely speak with the media and generally only to warn the public. So they are these 90-year-old Cassandras now, who are like, don't institutionalize your quintuplets. Don't put them in baby zoos.
I feel like that's a great T-shirt too. On the front, don't institutionalize your quintuplets. Well, on the back, don't put them in baby zoos.
Well, the funny thing is it is a live issue, because in the age of IVF,
right.
Big multiple births have once again been in the news more and more frequently. Like most famously, Octomom in the hinterlands of LA County. I think they lived in Bellflower. This Lithuanian Palestinian American mom implants, has she has 30 blastocysts on hand and implants a ton of them, and suddenly has eight surviving kids and has all the same problems. How do you survive 8 kids? Well, the answers in the 2010s are the same as they were in the 1930s. Well, can I
have a reality TV show?
Yeah, can I get in the public eye? Can the fact of the babies themselves pay for the babies? And it seems to have been, just as fraught for them as it was for the Dionnes in Corbeil, Ontario.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, once the babies aren't babies, it's immediately like, what tricks can these kids do?
I was looking up the Suleiman kids, and, there was a lot of, it turned out there were some shenanigans. I think their doctor was prosecuted. For the kinds of aggressive fertility treatments he was doing. I don't know if he was prosecuted, but I think he lost his medical license.
Yeah.
Doctors don't get disbarred. They get defrocked.
Booted.
Decommissioned.
Demedicaled.
They get demedicaled.
Dedoctored.
They get dedoctored. And their kids all seem to be maybe doing okay by all signs, apparently. Like Octomom's 8 kids are doing okay.
How old are they now?
Let's see. That was 2009. So they're 15. And
in high school somewhere.
The New York Times caught up with them in 2018, saying they are small for their age, but they're polite, they cook, they're vegan, they read 2 books a month and do their homework without being prompted. Basically, they're immigrant kids. Like this, having octuplets.
They're hustling.
Having octuplets is a way to produce hardworking first-generation kids.
They're going to go to USC. They're all going to be in the band.
In spite of all the horror stories in the tabloids, they are model 4th graders. But there are 14 siblings in all.
Jeez,
which means they're sleeping in shifts, basically at the Suleiman household. And apparently it's just a tight ship, even though it's not the Canadian government. Like Nadia apparently has to run a military-like household.
I can only imagine.
For the logistics.
I'm sure at a certain point the older kids were pressed into service. They're the ones that are going to be like, God, this sucked. What
would happen if 14 Lithuanian Palestinian babies just appeared in this room right now? Pop, pop, pop.
Well, if some of them were already 10, those 10-year-olds would have a lot of work to do.
Did you know Octomom is not the record anymore?
There's more than 8 babies?
There are nonuplets. In 2021, a Malian woman in Timbuktu, Mali, named Halima Cissé, got ultrasound and found that her pregnancy was 7 fetuses. Mali does not have the infrastructure, apparently, just like rural Canada.
Well, Timbuktu is, I don't mean to say to anyone in Timbuktu, I don't mean to tell you what your town is like, But it's a long way from anywhere.
Yes.
And it doesn't have any trees, if I recall. It's very deserty.
So it's not the place you want to have a high-risk pregnancy.
No, it's got like less than 40,000 people.
She was sent to Morocco to give birth, I guess.
See, now there, they got big times.
Nearest state-of-the-art
Rabat.
hospitals, and had non-uplets by C-section.
Thought it was going to be 7.
Yeah,
Ends
thought
up
it was
with
going to be
9.
7. Good, and that's the record. 7 wouldn't have been the record. 9 is the record. They did the C-section as late as they could because they wanted the babies to be as big as possible, but still some of them were like a pound.
Oh, man.
That's
little for a baby.
But the kids all survived as of their first birthday.
Right, because this is just now.
Yeah, this happened in 2021. So the last time there was media coverage of them, they were all in perfect health, although I guess, the media apparatuses in North Africa are incentivized to report it that way. The craziest thing is that according to both the parents and their doctors, the 9 babies were conceived naturally without IVF. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, how many good fertility clinics are there in Timbuktu, Mali? On the other hand, is there some disincentive in an Islamic nation to saying you used fertility treatments?
It does seem...
I don't want to speculate.
It does seem more likely that it might just be...
A quirk of...
Yeah. God has intervened once again.
God was like, this lady only has 1 kid.
Maybe
with a stroke of my wand, she could have 10.
Maybe Mali is the Ontario of Central Africa.
There's a T-shirt.
I looked up the Premier of Ontario. It's
whose head will we be shaking?
His name is Doug Ford.
Oh yeah, of course. It's the awful mayor's brother.
Yeah, and not to body shame Doug Ford, although I can't see his body, but his head really looks like a Soviet functionary from the 1980s, where his hairline is like way down, and he looks like he's made out of pork.
If he's anything like his brother,
no good.
He is maybe not great.
He seems not great. But Ontario.
I'm still gonna. Don't get me wrong. I'm still gonna entrust all my decisions to his oracular head.
What's strange is he kind of looks like a meatier version of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
That's what you want.
I mean, Robert F. Kennedy has more of a tan, but the two of them.
Our main objection to RFK Jr., of course, is that he's not meaty enough.
Right.
If the Kennedys had been meatier, well, I guess Teddy was the meatiest, and he didn't.
Teddy was pretty meaty, but he lasted longer than most.
He did, but only because he
too soon.
Only because he arranged to never be president. Cleverly.
Smart man. And that concludes the Dionne Quintuplets. Entry 352.JB0525. Certificate number 31042.
Did you say foo?
Foo Tor.
That's not a number.
42 in the omnibus.
I'm opening mail. Sorry. Rip.
Futureling's social media is no good. It's terrible. It's bad. Although if you want to yell at us about our disparagement of Doug Ford, that's the place to do it.
Is Doug Ford the good one? Please help us out.
I don't
Canada.
think so. But go on Mastodon and yell at us there, and we'll be sure to read those comments at some point. You can find us, though, at Ken Jennings and at John Roderick. Ken is now on Facebook at Real Ken Jennings, at Ken Jennings Actual.
Who is Ken Jennings?
Who is Ken Jennings? And I'm at John Roderick. You can email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. You can send us T-shirts that you have made, and we'll consider them. Don't send us the designs. Send us actual. I'm an extra large, and Ken is a medium, large? Medium. To P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155.
55 is the best one, I think.
You can...
Do you want to hear what's in the mail today?
Well, yeah, let's hear it.
We're still getting...
What do you got?
Well, we're recording in January, which means we're still getting holiday cards.
Yeah.
I apologize if you're listening to this in March or in the year 5000. But Josh and Rissy sent us their Bah Humbug themed holiday card. In this one, does she have she might have a wedding dress on? Unclear. Sonia sent us a holiday card, a sad one, because she lost her mom and her dog. So we have a tribute to both Connie and Lady Coco. Thank you, Sonia, for including us on the Christmas card list. Brenda, she's Gen Z and donates to Omnibus. Can you imagine?
What's up? High five. Double high five.
Oh, sorry, it's Brendan. I was like, can you imagine there's a Gen Zer named Brenda? Brendan seems a little more.
Brendan, I am dabbing you up. You've got the Riz.
And he sent us a postcard from Dollywood.
Brandon, you're like a well-rounded Gen Z person.
He wants you to have this, John, because both of Dolly's locomotives spent their pre-theme park life playing the railway of the last frontier. Oh, they're Alaskan, I see. Plying the railways of the last frontier. Okay.
Nice.
Dollywood has Alaskan X-locomotives.
That's very thoughtful.
Thank you for being a bright spot in a darkening world. Hey, just like Dollywood, we do what we can. There's also these photos that... Should I save these for the next show?
Let's have them now.
No, I'm going to save them.
Okay,
next week. I'm looking at what's left in the mailbag here. Thank you for sending us your holiday cards and or Dollywood memorabilia.
Oh, wow. Those locomotives were on the White Pass and Yukon Railway, which is the Chilkoot Trail Railway, and I have ridden on those, although those particular ones were, when I did that trip, it was already diesel locomotives.
They were already in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee by the time you hopped aboard, riding the rails.
I would just recommend to our listeners, if they have been to Dollywood or if they haven't, if they are Gen Z or if they are not, you should all consider donating to the show.
Brendans and Brendas alike.
And it's not really a donation. It's more of a supporting. It's like a trust fund for quintuplets, except it's for...
it's an investment in your future.
It's for me and for Ken, and it's going to help put us through McGill University. And what you do is you go to patreon.com/omnibus project and pledge $5 a month. And in return for it, you get at least $1,000 a month worth of bonus material.
Wow. What a deal. How could you turn that down? Yeah. If you give us $999 a month, you're still coming out ahead on the deal.
Right.
Because of all the entertainment value we provide.
That's right. That's right.
How did you estimate the $1,000, by the way? You're just thinking what you would pay?
No, I know how much hard work we put into it.
I see. You know your hourly rate.
Yep.
You know how many hours you work.
Yep, I do.
And did you divide it by 20 or 30,000 people?
The thing is, I was noticing the other day that if I go to my daughter's school and hang around, my hourly rate is a lot lower than if I am playing a rock show, for instance. Like, you must have this same equation. Like, your hourly rate when you're in Los Angeles is a lot different than your hourly rate around here.
Yeah, somebody just asked me to do a local event I really didn't want to do, so I gave them the real number in hopes that they would go away.
Have they gone away?
They just emailed me back, so it's not working.
Oh, dear.
Hopefully they're emailing me back to be like, are you crazy? Mr. Big Shot, big timing us.
All you have to do is get it once, and then it's the new standard.
That's called my quote. Even if I do a bad job, they still have to pay me my quote.
Pay me my quote.
Do you feel like you've
done it all?
Done your whole thing?
I've done the whole bit.
Did you talk about the futurelings? No.
Oh, I did. Oh, no, I didn't. Go hang out with people that love the show by putting futurelings into your preferred search engine and then clicking on links until you find people talking about how Ken's hatred of Canada and Australia make it very hard for you to listen to the show.
Well, I have to say, this story has not made me love Canada more. Canada doesn't come off that well in the story of the Dionne quintuplets. At least America just mummified its quintuplets and sent them on the road.
Yeah, that seems more like, well, and Kentucky and Ontario have a lot more in common than you might think.
I guess it's more in line with our healthcare system. They took kind of substandard care of the kids. We killed ours.
Yeah. If you think about Ohio as the meat of the sandwich, and Ontario and Kentucky as the bread of the sandwich, they really are, they're mirror images of each other.
Are the Great Lakes like the mayo?
Yeah, the Great Lakes are the mayo and the lettuce and
Oh, everything.
Yeah, the waterfall, the toxic waste.
Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, however, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.